Talking CRM with Jeff and David, getting the best value for the whole organization from your integrated CRM and accounting systems. David Beard, CRM Principal, and Jeff Richards, Head of Training Program Development for Sage CRM, spend time chatting with customers, resellers, and others about Sage CRM in action around the globe. In this episode, Jeff Richards talks with Basil about his evolution with Sage CRM, what makes a good Sage CRM consultant, and his wish list for CRM improvements.
Basil, how long have you been working with Sage CRM? What version did you start with?
I started on 7.0.
How have you found that the technology has changed since you started working with the software?
The biggest thing that I've noticed is the performance and the capabilities. All of the back-end investments that Sage has made to Sage CRM, it is visibly faster on the front end. And it doesn't matter if the server is older or if it's newer, it still has a noticeable performance uptick. That's just from the technological aspect on the back end. And then from the front end, you've got the ability to make customizations without them getting lost within the upgrades, and the upgrade process itself is a lot easier. So I would say that, over the years, those are the two things that have really stood out to me.
They're good things to hear about from your experience. I'm very much interested myself in the way in which organizations experience software. How does the user experience compare with, say, 100?
Oh, the fact that it's web browser based, by comparison, makes it much more intuitive and user friendly. You get into the nature of users, and you have to look at generational gaps as well. So there's an inherent psychology that you have to address. Younger people don't want to click 5 and 6 times to do a thing, whereas people from the older school or the older generations, they don't mind it as long as they can get the job done. Sage CRM enables them to do everything as efficiently as they choose it to be, whether it be curating dashboards and then connecting it to the workflow, or reports that enable them to quickly navigate to records, conduct actions against those specific records. The user experience overall is drastically better on Sage CRM.
That's the user experience. There's a flip side to that, which is the administrative and the business owners of the systems. How do you bridge the conceptual gap between somebody who is used to thinking in terms of the ERP system and then people who are thinking about the CRM system?
There are inherent connections in between Sage 100 and Sage CRM that are intuitive. And then from there are buttons that you can actually curate or create in a similar fashion to essentially extend the integration where it makes sense. For example, if a user is someone that lives an item inquiry within Sage 100, you can actually use the similar nature of buttons that are already created to create something like an item inquiry button, whether that be on the customer summary screen, whether it be directly on an opportunity summary. You can enable them to have those quick accesses where it makes sense.
That's required you to know the two systems. Imagine you are not you. Imagine you are somebody who's come you're a partner who has come from a world in which they know purely Sage 100, Sage 300. What do you have to say to somebody who is then faced with approaching a CRM project? What are the differences between the soft skills in thinking about an implementation that is a CRM project compared with an ERP project, and what are the different technical skills? And I'll allow you, which would you want to tackle first? The technical skills or the soft skills?
I'll start with the soft skills because I feel like those are undervalued in these particular types of conversations. In the world of ERP, you live in a world of black and white, debits and credits, essentially. Whenever you transition from the ERP world to a CRM world, the back office, you have to have that level of black and white so that all of the financials line up. Whereas on the actual CRM side, you're dealing with a world of gray because you can't have those rigid rules applied to customer interactions because customer A might be okay with that, but customer B might want it tweaked a little bit, or maybe they're going to ask for a little bit of leniency in the process in one area, whereas they wouldn't in another. Having that understanding that, you're dealing with the customers on a completely different level that's going to set them up for success in approaching a CRM project. Because if they go at it from that concept of black and white, the CRM system is ultimately going to be too rigid for the users to do what they need it to do.
That's a very interesting point, Jeff, isn't it? This idea about understanding why grey matters.
Yes, I do. That's the thinking process around soft skills. I personally, coming from a slightly more nerdy environment and nerdy background than, say, David, I would regard those as something of a mystery in a way. How does the technical skill set differ? Is there actually a technical difference between somebody who is an ERP consultant and a Sage CRM consultant?
So someone from a Sage 100 background, for example, the application is essentially built for them, and they have a very straightforward way of customization should they choose to go that route. But then whenever they jump into the Sage CRM world, so you're working with different technologies. You can't use the same scripting language within Sage 100 that you do within Sage CRM. You have to go beyond what you think you know or what you think can be done and then expand upon that. There are so many different technologies that you can leverage. You've got a myriad of combinations or amalgamations, if you will, that you can utilize to accomplish the end goal.
Basil, if there was only one thing we could grant you technically in the product that you think would make such a difference to people who use Sage 100 and to get them to use CRM, what would that be?
If I had a number one wish list item, it would be the capability of mapping a UDF from Sage 100 into a field within Sage CRM.
Do people know what UDFs are then? Is that a Sage 100 term?
UDF stands for user defined field, and basically it's a need for a customization to the Sage 100 system that they've implemented this UDF, and then from there it becomes a disparate data to that table. From a Sage CRM consultant perspective, and enabling the people that use Sage 100 on a very regular basis, being able to port over or mirror that information into Sage CRM, whether that be on the customer table, the opportunity, an RMA, so on and so forth, it would really give consultants the capability of easily replicating data or integrating the two systems.
Okay, so I have a two-part question to follow that then. One is, why do people have so many UDFs? Mm-hmm. What's the answer?
The simple answer to that is that it lacked functionality within Sage 100, or in one particular customer's case, they didn't have Sage CRM. So in their particular case, they ended up creating about 20 or 30 UDFs that essentially emulate the need to create a customer profile that would ultimately be satisfied by Sage CRM.
So they're retrofitting CRM functionality into Sage 100.
Absolutely, and essentially it.
And then, so that's an interesting point, because then my second part of the two-part question is, would it not be more sensible, rather than having a porting mechanism as you described it, to just say to your customers, let's take the 20 things you've squeezed into 100 and let's recreate them in CRM in a more user-friendly, practical way? Isn't that a better answer?
It is, and then there's a very tiny it isn't, because there are certain things within Sage 100 that need to stay within the Sage 100 world and need to be owned within that or managed in that, because Sage 100 is ultimately perceived, even from my perspective, if there's ever a discrepancy between Sage 100 and Sage CRM, Sage 100 should always win, because that should be your master system, because that's tied to your financials, that's tied to your tax reporting. It's the ultimate system of liability. So you need checks and balances. Yeah. While it makes sense that in the example of the customer that those 20 or 30 UDFs could all be ported over, that might not necessarily be the case every single time.
Good answer.
If you were going to give a younger version of you some advice, what would you turn around and say to the younger you when you started working with 7.0 that you know now?
You can accomplish pretty much anything between Sage 100 and Sage CRM, whether it be an Amazon-like feel to your quote and order process or creating buttons that aren't natively available.
Following on from Jeff's learning from the 7.0 Basil to now, what advice would you give to partners, resellers, others who might be listening to this about getting engaged with Sage CRM? Convince me why they should get going on CRM today and not next year.
CRM can truly enable the customers beyond the finance roles. By the nature, the Sage 100 resellers and VARs, they are exceptionally good at the Sage 100 skill set. If they're looking at truly being successful in implementing CRM for their customers, they have to make a decision. Do I want to invest the time and resources required to specialize in something as flexible and robust as a Sage CRM? Or do I want to leverage the knowledge and skill set of an existing partner that's already cut their teeth on the history of Sage CRM and its evolution?
I've got a follow-up. The REST API does open up huge choices for developers, and that's actually part of the strategy. I think David and I, when we talk about the roadmaps to partners, that's probably one of the big points that we're making, is that we're trying to make the product natively open to work in any way a third-party developer or an ISV want to be able to go.
Yeah, and I think that's a very wise decision, because the more you can empower people from a development standpoint, Sage CRM is inherently capable of being extended. It's continuing and enabling the partners to truly have the capability of taking Sage CRM and turning it into a platform, because at that point, you're able to then develop features and functions that otherwise wouldn't be able to be done using the user interface, using the administrator tools that are just there by default. The more you can enable a partner to customize it based off of the customer requirements, that's truly going to breed a lot of success within the ecosystem.
Our thanks to Basil Malik from Pabian Partners, based in Dallas, Texas, who specialize in bringing Sage CRM and Sage 100 together for customers across the USA. You've been listening to Talking CRM with Jeff and David, getting the best for the whole organization from your integrated CRM and accounting systems.